The sun was shining brightly that Sunday, warm and inviting. It was the kind of day that made you want to be outside, soaking in every ray. I arrived at Alex's family gathering, feeling the usual mix of excitement and dread. I loved these gatherings, but today felt different. As I stepped into the backyard, I caught sight of him. Benjamin. He was Alex's son, just 18, but there was something about him that drew me in. His youthful charisma captivated me instantly, and for a moment, I forgot about everyone else around us. "Hey, Mrs. Thompson!" Benjamin called out, his voice bright and carefree. I could feel my heart skip a beat. Did he just call me that? I wasn't ready for the warmth that spread through me. "I'm glad you could make it." "Of course. Wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, trying to sound casual, but the way he smiled made my words feel weak. There was an underlying tension as we exchanged glances, an unspoken connection simmering beneath the surface. I could feel my cheeks flush as I looked away, trying to focus on the chatter of the family around me. Why was this happening? I had been married to Alex for years, and yet here I was, feeling something for his son that I never thought I could feel. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself stealing glances at Benjamin when I thought no one was watching. Each time our eyes met, I felt a spark that sent shivers down my spine. Was it just my imagination? Or did he feel it too? My stomach twisted in knots as I grappled with the realization that this young man could awaken feelings I thought were reserved for my husband. I had always loved Alex, but now, with Benjamin standing so close, everything seemed to blur. "Do you want to help me with the grill?" Benjamin asked, pulling me from my thoughts. His eyes sparkled with mischief, and I couldn't help but smile back. "Sure, I'd love to," I responded, my voice steady, even though my heart raced. As we moved to the grill, I felt a rush of nervous energy. "Do you think we'll burn everything?" he joked, flashing me a grin that made my breath hitch. "Maybe, but it'll be a fun disaster," I laughed, hoping he couldn't see how flustered I felt. The subtle changes in my emotions were hard to ignore. Family gatherings, once filled with comfort and familiarity, became charged with unacknowledged desire. Every laugh Benjamin shared with me felt electric, and each lingering glance sent my mind racing. I struggled to keep my composure, to pretend that my heart wasn't betraying me. Later, as I watched him interact with our family, I noticed the way he moved, confidently yet playfully. It was a stark contrast to my life with Alex, where the passion had dulled over the years. I felt a pang of guilt, realizing that I was comparing my husband to his son. How could I allow myself to feel this way? As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the yard, I caught Benjamin's gaze again. This time, he didn't look away. My heart raced as I held his stare, a silent question hanging in the air between us. What were we doing? I felt a mix of excitement and fear. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, breaking the spell. "Yeah, just..." I hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's a lot, you know. Family gatherings can be overwhelming." He nodded, his expression serious. "I get that. Sometimes, I feel like I'm just trying to find my place." As the evening continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something I wasn't ready to confront. The tension between us was palpable, and I knew I was standing on the edge of a precipice. Would I take a step forward, or would I retreat back to the safety of my life with Alex? The questions lingered in the air as I tried to navigate the storm of emotions swirling within me. The days turned into weeks after that fateful Sunday, and my connection with Benjamin began to deepen in ways I never expected. Family lunches became the highlight of my week. Each gathering was filled with laughter, stories, and a sense of warmth that made my heart race. I found myself looking forward to seeing him, to hearing his laughter, and to sharing those fleeting moments that felt electric. One Saturday afternoon, as we sat on the patio, the sun casting a golden hue over everything, I found myself laughing at one of Benjamin's jokes. "You really think that's funny?" I teased, my eyes sparkling. He leaned closer, a playful grin on his face. "I know it's funny. Just look at your smile." In that moment, I caught a glimpse of his smile, and it struck me like a bolt of lightning. It was so genuine, so full of life. It was different from the smiles I shared with Alex. I felt a pang of guilt wash over me, but it quickly faded away as I got lost in Benjamin's laughter. As the weeks went on, I noticed how easily we connected. During family outings, I would catch him looking my way, his gaze lingering just a second longer than necessary. Each time our eyes met, it felt like an unspoken agreement, a recognition of something more than just family ties. I remember one evening, after a long day, I found myself sitting next to him on the couch, both of us engrossed in a movie. As the plot unfolded, I felt his arm brush against mine. My heart raced. I turned to him, and our eyes locked. "This is a good movie," I said, though my heart was not in it. The air between us felt thick, charged with unacknowledged feelings. "Yeah, but I think the popcorn is better," he replied with a wink, breaking the tension. I laughed, but inside, I was wrestling with emotions that made me feel alive yet terrified. Then, there were those moments when I would catch myself daydreaming about him. I would find myself lost in thoughts of his smile, his laughter, the way he listened to me. It was a stark contrast to the routine I shared with Alex, where conversations often felt rehearsed, the love overshadowed by familiarity. One afternoon, I decided to invite Benjamin to help me with a project in the garden. As we worked side by side, planting flowers and pulling weeds, I felt a sense of peace. "You have a real knack for this," I said, watching him carefully place a flower in the soil. "Thanks. I just love being outside," he replied, glancing at me with a smile that made my heart flutter. I was struck by how effortlessly we connected, our conversation flowing as smoothly as the breeze around us. But with every shared laugh and every stolen glance, guilt crept closer. I knew that my feelings for Benjamin were growing stronger. I tried to rationalize it, convincing myself that it was harmless fun. "It's just a phase," I whispered to myself. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. One evening, after a particularly enjoyable family dinner, I found myself walking with Benjamin under the stars. The night was quiet, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves. "Do you ever wonder about life and where it's taking us?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Sometimes," I admitted, looking up at the twinkling stars. "But I try not to think too much about it." "Why not? Life is short. We should make the most of it," he said, his voice tinged with a seriousness that made me pause. "Maybe you're right," I replied, feeling a mix of excitement and dread. I knew I was playing with fire, yet I couldn't help but lean closer, drawn to him in a way that felt both exhilarating and wrong. As I walked back inside that night, I felt the weight of my growing affection for Benjamin. It was a betrayal to Alex, a man I had committed to, yet here I was, caught in a web of desire. I knew I had to face the truth, but the thought terrified me. How could I reconcile these feelings without breaking everything apart? The night Alex left for his work trip felt like a turning point, a moment suspended in time. As I closed the door behind him, I could almost hear the echo of my heart racing. I was alone with Benjamin, and the air in the room was thick with unspoken desires. I could feel it, a weight pressing down on us, urging us to cross a line that had been drawn so carefully until now. "Are you sure you want to stay?" Benjamin asked, his voice low and filled with a mix of concern and curiosity. He stood in the living room, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his eyes searching mine for answers. I forced a smile, trying to brush off the tension. "What else would I do?" It's just us tonight." My words hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation all at once. As we settled into the couch, the distance between us seemed to shrink. We talked and laughed, sharing stories that felt more intimate than ever. Each laugh echoed with a hint of something more, a promise of what could be if we let ourselves go. I caught myself stealing glances at him, noticing the way his hair fell over his forehead, the way his smile lit up the room. It was intoxicating. "Do you remember the first family gathering?" Benjamin asked suddenly, breaking my reverie. "You were so nervous about fitting in." I chuckled softly, recalling that day. "I thought I would embarrass myself. Who knew I'd end up loving this crazy family?" He leaned closer, his shoulder brushing against mine. "I think you fit in perfectly. You make everything better." His words sent a shiver down my spine. I glanced at him, and our eyes locked for a moment that felt electric. The laughter faded, replaced by a heavy silence. I could feel my heart pounding, each beat echoing the thoughts racing through my mind. "Benjamin, this is..." I started, but my voice faltered. How could I explain what I was feeling without crossing a line? He seemed to sense my hesitation. "What? This is what? Awkward?" He smiled, trying to lighten the mood, but the tension was palpable. "No, it's not awkward. It's just complicated," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Complicated how?" His gaze was intense, searching for the truth behind my words. I took a deep breath, the gravity of the moment settling in. "I shouldn't feel this way about you. It's not right." His expression shifted, a mix of understanding and desire. "But you do feel something, don't you?" I nodded slowly, unable to deny the truth any longer. "Yes, I do. And it scares me." "Why?" he asked, leaning even closer. "Because of Alex?" His name hung in the air, like a bitter reminder. "Yes, because of Alex. I love him, but..." "But?" Benjamin prompted, his voice low and steady. "But I can't ignore what's happening between us," I confessed, feeling the weight of my honesty. In that moment, the line I had tried so hard to maintain began to blur. The tension that had built between us reached a breaking point, and I felt the pull of desire draw me closer to him. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the struggle between wanting and knowing. "Maybe we should stop," I said, my voice trembling. But even as the words left my lips, I knew I didn't want to. "Stop?" he echoed, and I could see the pain in his expression. "Or maybe we should just see where this goes." Before I could answer, he reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. The touch sent sparks through my body, igniting a fire I had tried so hard to suppress. In that moment, everything else faded away. The guilt, the fear, the reality of my life with Alex. I surrendered to the moment, leaning into Benjamin as our lips met for the first time. It was a desperate, intense kiss that erased all doubts and fears. As I kissed him back, I felt a rush of pleasure intertwining with guilt, flooding my mind with conflicting emotions. I had crossed a line from which there was no return, and deep down, I knew there would be consequences. But in that moment, all I could feel was the warmth of his embrace and the thrill of desire that had finally been unleashed. The morning light streamed through the curtains, illuminating the mess of emotions that filled my heart. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection in the mirror, trying to make sense of the chaos inside me. The events of the previous night replayed in my mind like a haunting melody, each note striking a chord of guilt and longing. I had crossed a line, and now the weight of my betrayal pressed down on me like a heavy fog. Why did I let it happen? I whispered to myself, my voice barely breaking the silence. The answer was elusive, slipping through my fingers like sand. I had always thought of myself as loyal, grounded in my love for Alex. Yet here I was, wrestling with feelings for his son, Benjamin. A soft knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Alex. "Honey, are you okay? You've been quiet this morning," he called, his voice warm and inviting. "Yeah, I'm fine," I replied, forcing a smile that I hoped he could not see. I wanted to tell him everything, to confess the truth that lay heavy on my heart, but the words felt trapped inside me. I couldn't bear to hurt him. "Are you sure? You know you can talk to me about anything," he said, and I could hear the concern lacing his words. "I know, Alex. Just a little tired, I guess," I answered, trying to sound casual. But inside, I felt anything but relaxed. The truth was a storm brewing, and I feared it would break loose at any moment. As the day went on, I found myself stealing moments with Benjamin. Each secret meeting felt like a bittersweet escape from the reality that awaited me. We would meet in the park, hidden from the world, and there, amidst the trees and laughter of children, I felt alive. "Can you believe we're actually doing this?" Benjamin asked one afternoon, a playful smile dancing on his lips. "I know," I replied, my heart racing. "It feels both exciting and wrong at the same time." He stepped closer, his gaze intense. "I don't want to stop seeing you. There's something between us that I can't ignore." His words sent chills down my spine. I wanted so badly to give in to those feelings, to embrace the connection we had. But guilt crept in, reminding me of the life I had built with Alex. "What about my marriage, Benjamin?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I love him. I can't just throw that away." "I get it," he said softly, his expression shifting to one of concern. "But what we have, it feels so real. I don't want to be just a secret." I looked into his eyes and felt a pang of longing. "You're not just a secret to me, but I don't know how to balance this." The internal struggle was tearing me apart. Days turned into weeks, and the emotional turmoil continued to grow. I oscillated between my undeniable affection for Benjamin and the commitment I had made to Alex. Each stolen moment with Benjamin felt like a rush, but when I returned home, the guilt would wash over me like a cold wave. One evening, after a particularly intense meeting with Benjamin, I found myself standing in the kitchen, staring at the food I had prepared for Alex. It felt like a mask, hiding the truth from him. When he walked in, the warmth of his smile made my heart ache. "Dinner looks amazing," he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I could smell his familiar scent, and for a moment, everything felt right. But then the weight of my betrayal crashed down once more. "Thanks," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to confess, to tell him about the turmoil inside me, but the words remained stuck in my throat. As we sat down to eat, Alex chatted about his day, but I could hardly focus. Every laugh, every smile felt like a dagger in my heart. I was inflicting pain on him, and yet I couldn't find the courage to confront my own heart. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked again, concern filling his voice. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind," I said, forcing a smile. "You know how it is." But inside, I was spiraling, facing the consequences of my actions and the pain I was inflicting on Alex. I realized I had to confront my feelings, to face the truth that I had been avoiding. The question loomed over me. How long could I continue living this lie? The weight of betrayal was becoming unbearable, and I knew I had to make a choice. The days after that night with Benjamin felt like walking on a tightrope. I could sense the tension building in our family, especially with Alex. He was more observant than ever, his eyes searching for something he could not name. I remember one evening, we sat at the dinner table, and the silence was thick enough to cut. Alex glanced my way, his brow furrowed. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low but steady. I forced a smile. Of course, just tired from the week. But I could see the doubt in his eyes. I was slipping, and I knew it. Every laugh shared with Benjamin, every secret glance, felt like a ticking bomb waiting to explode. I worried that my secret would come crashing down around me, and I couldn't bear the thought of hurting Alex. One afternoon, I found myself sitting on the porch with Benjamin. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow across his features. I felt both comforted and terrified by how easily we fell into our conversations. He looked at me with an intensity that made my heart race. "I can't stop thinking about that night," he said, breaking the silence. I swallowed hard. "Neither can I. But we can't keep doing this, Benjamin." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Why not? What we have is special. You feel it too." I looked away, my heart pounding in my chest. It feels wrong. I love Alex. I can't betray him like this. "But what about us?" he pressed. "Can't we just be honest about how we feel?" His words hung in the air, heavy and charged. I felt a conflict at war within me. On one hand, the desire was undeniable, but on the other, the weight of betrayal was crushing. "It's not that simple," I finally replied, my voice shaking. That moment of honesty shook me to my core. I needed to face the reality of my situation, but every time I thought of Alex, I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. I loved him, yet here I was, caught in a web of desire that threatened to consume me. Then came the day I dreaded. Alex had been unusually quiet, and I could tell something was bothering him. As I was washing the dishes, he entered the kitchen, leaning against the doorway. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice steady, but edged with concern. I felt my heart sink. "Of course." I turned off the water and dried my hands, bracing for the conversation that could change everything. "I feel like something's off between us," he said, studying my face. "You've been distant. Is there something you want to tell me?" I felt my breath hitch. The panic surged within me. "Alex, Is it about Benjamin?" he interrupted, his eyes wide with realization. I froze, the truth hanging in the air like a dark cloud. "What do you mean?" I played dumb, but I could see he was not buying it. "I can see the way you look at him. I see the way he looks at you. You can't hide it from me." His voice cracked slightly, revealing the pain beneath his calm facade. My heart raced. "It's not what you think," I said desperately. "Then what is it?" he pressed, stepping closer. "I need to know." I felt trapped, my mind spinning. "I care about him, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. I'm just confused." "Confused?" he echoed, his voice rising. "This isn't just confusion. This is something serious. You need to decide what you want." His words cut through the chaos in my mind. I could feel the weight of my choices pressing down on me, suffocating me. I realized then that I could not keep living a lie. The haunting question lingered in my mind. Could I continue this way, or was it time to confront my feelings and the reality of my situation? "I need time," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Time?" Alex repeated, his expression a mix of hurt and frustration. "Time for what? To decide if you want to be with him or me?" I nodded slowly, the tears threatening to spill over. "I just need time to think." The gravity of the moment settled between us, unspoken words hanging in the air, and I knew that whatever choice I made would change everything. As I stood in front of the mirror, I barely recognized the woman looking back at me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside. The reflection showed me someone caught between two worlds, two lives, and two very different futures. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me, but it was no use. I was at a crossroads. "Who have I become?" I whispered to myself, searching for answers in my own eyes. The woman staring back wore a mask of confusion, and I realized I had been hiding from my own truth for far too long. My thoughts drifted to Benjamin, the young man whose laughter haunted me and whose smile ignited feelings I thought were lost. But then, there was Alex, the man who had been my partner through thick and thin. I thought of our years together, the memories that filled our home, and the love that once felt unbreakable. I turned away from the mirror, my heart heavy with the weight of my choices. I knew I had to make a decision, and it would not be easy. My mind raced with questions. Could I truly embrace this intoxicating desire for Benjamin? Or should I recommit myself to Alex, a love that, despite its pain, was built on years of shared history? The thought of facing Alex made my stomach churn. I could almost hear his voice in my mind, filled with concern and confusion. "What is going on with you?" he would ask, his eyes searching mine for an answer. I could not run away from that moment anymore. I had to confront the truth. As I paced the room, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. It was a message from Benjamin, a simple text that read, "I miss you." An ache settled in my chest, and I found myself hesitating. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, but I could not respond. I had to focus on what really mattered. With a deep breath, I made my way to the living room, where Alex was sitting on the couch, his face buried in a book. The sight of him made my heart ache even more. He looked so peaceful, yet I knew a storm was brewing beneath the surface. I cleared my throat, and he looked up, his expression shifting to one of concern. "Hey, is everything okay?" he asked, putting the book down. His voice was gentle, but I could sense the tension in the air. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of my words hung between us, and I could see his brow furrow in worry. "About what?" he replied, leaning forward, his eyes locked onto mine. I took another deep breath, gathering my courage. "About us. About everything that's been going on." Alex's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "What do you mean? You've been distant lately, and I don't know why." "I've been feeling lost," I admitted, my heart racing. "There's something I need to tell you, something that I've been hiding." "Just tell me," he urged, his voice steady, but his eyes betraying his anxiety. I felt my stomach twist in knots. "I've been spending time with Benjamin, and I've developed feelings for him. I never meant for it to happen, but it did." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched as Alex's face fell, his eyes widening in shock. "What? You're serious?" He shook his head, disbelief etched across his features. "I know it's wrong. I know I've betrayed you," I said, tears welling in my eyes. "But I can't keep living this lie." "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "After everything we've been through?" I felt my heart shatter a little more with each word. "Because I love you, Alex, but I also feel something for him that I can't ignore." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and hurt mixing in his expression. "So what do we do now?" I took a deep breath, my heart heavy with the weight of my confession. "I don't know, but I need to figure it out. I need to understand what love and desire really mean for me." In that moment, the truth hung in the air between us, a painful reminder of the choices that define who we are. I realized that life is a series of decisions, and I had to choose the path I wanted to follow, even if it meant facing the consequences of my actions. Share this story if you believe that love can navigate even the toughest challenges. Let us know in the comments how a moment of honesty has transformed your life, and subscribe for more captivating stories like this one.